Much more than entertainment.
It really, really nice. May I have to say it twice.
The time by Jamaica Mountain Peak Golden Turmeric Latte is
12 p.m.
It's Friday, June 14, 2024. Welcome to CVM News at Noon. I'm Nika Lewis. It's day 5 of the Court of Appeal hearing to determine whether or not Vybz Cartel and his co-appellants should be retried for the alleged murder of Clive Lizard Williams back in 2011. Yesterday saw the lead attorney challenging the prosecution's evidence as the defense seeks to convince the 3-judge panel against a retrial. We will, of course, be getting some updates live from the courthouse later on in the package with our reporter Natalia Clark. Meanwhile, yesterday, judges overseeing the state's plea to retry the murder of Clive Lizard Williams and that of the accused Vybz Cartel say that the case is among the most complex they've seen locally. On Thursday, the prosecution began their substantive hearing, justifying the breach of a constitutional right and shedding light on the timeline for a possible retrial.
Acting Director of Public Prosecutions, Claudette Thompson, in trying to persuade the Court of Appeal to retry Vybz Cartel and his co-accused, said a trial date could be set as early as 2025. A potential delay in the trial is a primary concern for the defense since the men have been incarcerated since 2011. Commencing the Crown's contribution to the substantive hearing on Thursday, Thompson said, given the complexity and nature of the case, the Supreme Court will most likely label the matter as a priority, eliminating the average 4-year wait time for a trial start date. Lead Judge Marva MacDonald Bishop, however, questioned if that would be fair to other cases before the court that would have to be pushed back or delayed. The 3-judge panel is also seeking to be satisfied that the state can afford the retrial. Thompson's position is that the state will just have to bear the cost. Her justification is that murder is a serious offense that's prevalent in Jamaica, and it is in the interest of justice that the men are not released. The Crown also sought to allay concerns regarding the availability of evidence and witnesses. Justice MacDonald Bishop says the Court of Appeal will not order a retrial knowing the witnesses aren't available. In an affidavit from Senior Deputy DPP Jeremy Taylor, the ADPP asserted, without specifying, that most of the witnesses are available. Additionally, she says there is a technical evidence, namely digital extractions like the BlackBerry messages and videos, communication data, and cell site data, which the defense team has argued should be excluded. However, the acting DPP assures the court that the Crown has a solid case against the accused men, and even if the technical evidence is thrown out, they're still left with a strong circumstantial evidence. Regarding the defense's position that the accused men's constitutional right to a fair trial within a reasonable time was breached, the lead prosecutor conceded, but argued it was a justifiable delay. Thompson then walked the court through the varied judicial steps taken since the now-quashed 2014 conviction. Prosecutor Janique Forms soon took the floor to tackle publicity and prejudice. Defense lawyer John Clark on Wednesday told the court none of the common law safeguards were deployed by the trial judge to safeguard the integrity of a possible new trial. That's in the context that much of the communication evidence was leaked, widely accessible, interpreted and dissected. But the Assistant Director of Public Prosecutions is of the view that there are safeguards the court can now employ to guarantee a fair retrial. This includes frequently given directives to jurors. He continues his argument on this point on Friday. The 5-day hearing was expected to culminate on Friday with a decision, retrial or acquittal. But Justice MacDonald Bishop says a report from the Supreme Court about other cases sent to retrial is still outstanding. A decision will not be made until all parties peruse the finding. Natalia Clark, CVM News.
And just before we close that discussion, Natalia is actually on location joining us live. Welcome again, Natalia. What's the latest?
Thank you, Nico. Now, the latest, at the end of that report, I noted that the Court of Appeal was waiting on a report from the Supreme Court regarding other matters that were sent for retrial since 2018. Well, court this morning, day 5, the final day of the Cartel hearing, started with her saying that, hey, the report is now ready. And the finding is that two cases were sent back to the Supreme Court since 2018 for a retrial. They are yet to be given a trial date. One was sent back in September 2022, the other in September 2023. That means that those two matters are already waiting for at least 2 years, which means if Cartel's case is sent back, there's a possibility that there will also be a delay. However, the report also noted that there is provision for some cases to be regarded as priority, meaning that they may get an expedited hearing. The report that Justice MacDonald Bishop shared as well is that the Supreme Court is now seeing cases that are solely judge-only up until 2025, and that matters that require a jury will be heard as late as 2026. Now, other updates coming from day 5 is that prosecutor Janique, I'm forgetting his last name at the moment, but he was the last speaker yesterday. He noted that publicity, as the defense is arguing, is not as critical as they're making it out to be. He's arguing that though the case has received widespread publicity, both locally and internationally, it has not been that impactful where a trial cannot be given. He also noted other cases like Bill Cosby that was widely dissected and was still went through the court basically. So we are still on the matter of publicity. We've also gone through some of the affidavits, and the prosecution also touched on the health condition of the appellants, Vybz Cartel and Sean Campbell, and there are some interesting points there, but I'll provide all the details in our report at 7.
Thank you so much. That's our reporter live at the Court of Appeal in downtown Kingston, Natalia Clark. It's time to get former Prime Minister P.J. Patterson, who's calling for a rethinking of trade relations between Afro-Caribbean nations and the globe. Patterson recently made a rallying cry at the annual Afro-Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum in the Bahamas.
The first thing that has to happen is that Africa has to finally exercise true sovereign power over all its resources.
Yes. The former Prime Minister is critical of what he perceives as predatory trade practices, which he says stall the development of majority black nations. This comes just a few months after President Faustin Archange Touadéra of the Central African Republic accused Western countries of causing a migration crisis by exploiting Africa's natural resources and impoverishing the continent through slavery and neo-colonialism. Our reporter Ramon Gordon is attending the conference.
Hello team, it's Ramon Gordon here reporting live from the Bahamas. It's raining here in Nassau, but I promise you that hasn't hampered the event that's happening here. It's the final day of the 3rd annual Afro-Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum, held this year as part of the 31st annual Afro-Exim Bank's annual meetings. It's like a coming together of sorts. It almost feels like a family reunion of world and industry leaders from Afro-Caribbean nations, and they're all keen on fostering trade and furthering the interests of our people. Now, I've been here at the beautiful Grand Hyatt since yesterday, and already the conversations I've been privy to have been nothing short of exciting. I've heard a presentation from His Excellency President Irfan Ali, and we know he's from Guyana, and he issued a very passionate call for a renewed focus on local industries and the type of values that can be created for both African nations and small island developing states like Jamaica. So thinking beyond the tourism, to think about conversations about biodiversity services and the blue economy and the marine economy. So much is happening, so much to talk about. An Oscar award-winning Viola Davis is also here, and she shared in a conversation about promoting African stories and identities. And mind you, this is just the tip of the proverbial iceberg. Tune into CVM News at 7 later to hear all about a major infrastructure suggestion from former Jamaican Prime Minister P.J. Patterson. He's also here. And also hear the details of an upcoming meeting of CARICOM finance ministers and governors. I'm Ramon Gordon, reporting live from the, well, rainy Bahamas for CVM News.
Thank you so much, Ramon. Now, the government recently announced that the country is doing much better than it was years ago with the International Monetary Fund, the IMF. As a result, Jamaica has signed a contract with the World Bank Group aimed at building a green economy for the country. Speaking on Lead Story yesterday, World Bank Human Development Regional Director for Latin America and the Caribbean, Jaime Saavedra, explains what this agreement means for the country.
Jamaica is now in a moment of transition, right? So for a long period, a lot of the financing of the multilaterals and the IMF was in order to support the country in terms of the macro imbalances that it faced. We're moving up the ladder of development, right? In the sense that we will continue, the country will continue having a program like PATH. Yes. But first of all, now PATH has to be a resilient project, the word that you were using before. Yes. We need to make sure that a program like PATH can be expanded if there's a new crisis, yes, right? If there's a hurricane, yes, or there's another pandemic, hopefully, yes, there won't be. But if that happens, then the country must have better information systems, mm-hmm, so that it can reach more people, mm-hmm, quickly, mm-hmm, right? If the need is there, and maybe even increase the size of the transfer, mm-hmm, if the need is there. Mm-hmm. So that's one first thing, right? Mm-hmm. That system is now more resilient, and actually we're providing technical assistance to the country, mm-hmm, in order to make sure that happens. Mm-hmm. How do we change the framework of PATH in order to make it a more resilient instrument? Mm-hmm. But in addition to that, a program like PATH implies just fiscal resources. Yes. You just need money from the government in order to transfer to people.
CVM News at noon returns after this break.
I am deaf.
You know what? Never change.
Ward off deaf. Obey the road code. A message from the Road Safety Unit in the Island Traffic Authority.
Bag it and pin it, every rubbish in a pan. No dirty up the place, this a we island. So keep Jamaica, keep Jamaica. Say me we do it, keep Jamaica clean. Beg you listen to me please. No plastic bag, no fear blowing at the breeze. No proper garbage, disposal, recycle plastic, now make it full up in the streets. Bag it and pin it, every rubbish in a pan. No dirty up the place, this a we island. So keep Jamaica, keep Jamaica. Say me we do it. A message from the National Solid Waste Management Authority.
Welcome back. Now, the PNP's Lisa Hanna has called for the definition of rape to be gender neutral. She says in light of the long-standing definition of rape and sexual intercourse, the assault of men and boys has gone unpunished, unrecognized and unreported out of fear. Joining us in studio for this discussion today is none other than the Member of Parliament for Southeast St. Anne, the PNP's Lisa Hanna. Welcome, Ms. Hanna.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So this is a very timely discussion for some and a very unwelcomed one for others. What prompted the members' motion?
Well, this is something that I've been talking about for many years when I was Minister of Government and also as MP, because there is a legislative dilemma that we face in Jamaica because of the definition that we have of sexual intercourse, which is of the entrance of the penis to the vagina only. And so what happens is a man cannot be raped in this country, and even if that man who perpetrates the rape onto a woman or any kind of assault with any other body part or any other implement, it is considered grievous sexual assault. So as an MP, I've come in contact with women in my own constituency who have been gang raped by men anally and orally.
Oh, goodness.
And the sanctions and the sentencing of those men are much less because it's not rape. They've been charged with grievous sexual assault. I've had boys when I was Minister of Government who were so afraid, and to this day who I still know, who are raped by men or sexually abused by women, and they live with that shame and stigma because if it is done by a man to them, they don't come forward because we don't have statistics of men being raped in this country. And if it is done to them by a woman, they also feel stigmatized. So I felt the time was now, and I've always spoken about it, but it has created backlashes because of some religious extremists who feel that by altering certain things, we are contravening biblical sanctions or biblical scriptures. And the problem is that other jurisdictions in the Caribbean have changed their definition of rape to include other body parts, other kinds of implements.
Yes.
And in that way, it has become more gender neutral so that both men and women can be charged for rape and that a man in their country can, charge someone else for raping them.
Interesting. But your colleagues in Parliament don't seem to share similar views on this topic.
Well, I don't think that they don't share similar views. I think what happens, we've had a law that has come to us from almost 500 years ago,
yes,
from the days of King Henry VIII, which it's true. And that was the Buggery Act.
Yes.
And at that time, when King Henry was breaking from the Catholic Church, he put into civil law the crimes of both men and women to be punishable by death if they performed certain acts. Now, by about 1828, almost 300 years later, they amended the law to not be punishable by death, but only for men. So it was it was still punishable by death, but it was only for men. And then as it got further on, by 1861, they moved it to hard labor, but still only for men. England expanded their law and repealed it in 1967, but nearly 500 years later, Jamaica still has that law. So it is really only for men, which is what creates the legitimate and legislative dilemma for why we can't change certain definitions. So it's a colonial law that we have and an inheritance. And it is coming from a time when the Church of England said we're breaking from the Catholic Church, or King Henry VIII said we're breaking from the Catholic Church, so we're going to go here.
For his personal reasons.
For his personal, exactly. For his personal reasons.
But one of the things, why then continue to promulgate this message, this argument of change in a time when it appears not much of society is quite ready to handle it?
Because I wonder sometimes if I was around in the days of slavery, would I have stood up on the right side of history? I would have wanted to. And I get goosebumps thinking about it because I know the men who are suffering from it. I know the women who are suffering. I've seen the girls in my constituency. And I think it doesn't matter what time it is, unless many, many voices and actions and calls to actions come forward. We don't break and change things. And so it doesn't matter to me that people don't feel it is the right time. to me it is the right time, because you don't force change to help people. If we don't do this now, you will continue to have sexual violence perpetrated on both men and women in this country. And I can't live as a legislator, I can't live as a human being, as a mother, as a sister, as a wife, as a Jamaican, knowing that this is in place, and keep my head buried in the sand of hypocrisy. I'm vaccinated against hypocrisy, so I can't do that. And I think if more people really sit down and think about it, they will understand what we're doing that is so wrong.
And then we have approximately 80% of our population thinking this is a gateway to amendments to the Buggery law.